Closed session, conference with labor negotiation, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, and that's it, right? Thank you very much. We now reconvene our regular council meeting. We're going to have the Bell Explorers lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If everybody could please stand. The mic.
Oh, they switched it.
You guys can take out the mic if you want.
Please stand and place your right hand over your heart for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Por favor, manténganse parados para el Pledge of Allegiance en español. Por favor.
Spanish?
¿Listos? Prometo fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo de Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Wow.
Never heard it before.
This is my first time hearing this Pledge of Allegiance in Spanish. That's great. Now we got to get it translated in Arabic one day. If we could please, City Attorney, please give us a report.
Yes, Council met in closed session. We discussed labor negotiations, gave direction for the negotiations. No reportable action was taken. We also discussed significant exposure to litigation. In one case, we gave a status report on that matter. Again, no reportable action was taken.
Thank you very much. Presentation of certificates to the Bell High School students who received awards at the academic decathlon. Let's first give them a round of applause. They really were one of the top 10 schools in the state of California. If the council could please join me.
They're my kid. There's 2 Yetis here.
Really?
I'm going to call your names, and you can come one by one as I call your name. Huh? Boris Wilkins. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Thank you. Absolutely. And that's true. In terms of this, they're just, they create such a mess here. Yeah. Trying to figure out how to do it, but it's like
Robert Zarate.
dancing on the hill.
Congratulations. Thank you. Want to take a quick picture? Congratulations. María José Ramírez. Congratulations. If you can. Vanessa Vasquez. Diana Martinez. Congratulations. Nayeli Contreras. David Favela. José Carlos Escobar. Congratulations. Take a quick picture. We called each other and said we're going to wear the same clothes. Cynthia Campos, and I just found out that you're going to Yale. Congratulations. And the one that led this group, Coach Heather Wilson, congratulations. And Coach Matthew Moreno. Congratulations. Thank you very much. Oh, let's take a quick picture.
I'm okay. Thank you so much. This means just the world to us to be able to come and share this amazing experience with all of you tonight. This is a team that had several veterans. Please raise your hand if you served on the academic decathlon team more than 1 year. Okay. Incredible talent. Please raise your hand if you earned at least 1 medal at the competition. 2 medals at the competition. And raise your hand if you got a conference award in at least 1 event. In at least 3 events. 5 events. You did. For those of you who don't know much about academic decathlon, these students worked all year studying art, music, history, English, science, math, economics, speech, interview, and essay. You have before you students who medaled in speech. I had 5 students medal in speech. I had 3 students medal in interview, and those, as you know, are some of the hardest things, to be able to get up in front of a group of people and to talk without any problem. They are incredible. And for the first time, we were able to go to the state competition. This was something that Bell High School's been working for for so, so long. When we first started several years ago, Bell was not that great. And this year we were 10th in LAUSD. And to give you an idea, the national champion came out of LAUSD this year. So it was a very competitive competition. They did amazing. They made it to the state competition, and we're 33rd in the state for California. So thank you again.
Again, congratulations. This really means a lot to our city. You guys don't understand, this is the first time in our district that we go to the academic decathlon in the state. So again, let's give them another round of applause. And if we can have all of you guys come here and let's take a group picture. First one, it'll be very professional. Second one, little goofy faces and stuff. So. Good job. Good job. Take care. We now move to communications from the public. Miguel Angel Lopez. Miguel Angel Lopez. After Miguel is Denise, Dennis Acevedo. My apologies.
Hello, Council. Newly elected Mr. Doug Wilmore and a wonderful guest tonight.
Appointed.
Appointed. Thank you so much. 6822 San Luis, Miguel Angel Lopez. Hello, Mr. Coach. My challenge or my question is if we can do a three-way stop sign on San Luis, Corona Avenue, and Bell Avenue. You folks are familiar with that intersection that crosses. If we can get a three-way sign, it would be great. When I'm driving northbound on San Luis, going to Bell Avenue, and I make a left turn, I need to wait sometimes for the folks going westbound on Bell Avenue, and sometimes they do not let me cross. So my question would be if we could do something where we can have a three-way stop sign that says three-way. You wait, I wait, we all go together as a, accordance to the stop sign.
I'm confused. Isn't there a stop sign there?
There are 3 stop signs, yes. There's both north and south on Bell Avenue. For those of us present here, you can vouch for that or feel the same thing that we felt.
I'm just trying to understand what's...
Right, but other cities have what says 3-way, 4-way, 5-way stops, how they stop. So the residents know it's a matter of, you stop first, I stop, then we go in turns.
Okay.
Some residents just feel that because they stop, they can still continue. Therefore, it's a domino effect. I'm waiting for someone else's ignorance, with all respect. And because maybe they don't know. I don't know if I'm sharing the same thing that you guys feel for me as well.
Understood.
Yes. So that's what I want to bring up to the meeting tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dennis Acevedo. After Dennis is Monica Gutierrez.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor, new City Manager. Nice talking with you. You seem like a nice guy. I just want to voice my same concern that I normally voice. I'm a retired police officer from LAPD and from the City of Maywood. My concern is that I told you guys why didn't your budget keep your police department. If it does work out where Bell's going to take over Cudahy, I think that's just going to be a good thing. I see good things happening on that. And I want to commend you for your citizen support. You guys have great citizen support here. I want to thank your police department. I think they're doing a great job, and I think you guys have one of the best Explore programs that I've ever seen. So again, whatever you can do to save your police department, thank you.
Thank you very much. Monica Gutierrez. After Monica is Alida Montanez Salas.
Hello, everybody. Well, my name is Monica, and my concern is about the recycling deposits that are located on the Sherman Way, on the parking, Smart and Final, and Chuck E. Cheese. I live in Sherman Way, 7008 Sherman Way, and my concern is about the noises, about the smell nasty, and overall the people that are put the things. They have a lot of people that are, how do you say, the people that drunk, and yeah, they drunk a lot, and they are in the area, and they look at this is, for example, this is the deposit, right? And my house is like you in that part, so we can see the people doing pee-pee, and they said a lot of bad words. And I don't know what I can do, but this is very concerned because I have adolescent kids, I have ladies there, and I know that a lot of my neighbors come to concern about that situation, and we don't have any response about that.
Okay, they'll look into it.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Alida Montanez Salas, and then Julia Juarez.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members, and our new City Manager. My name is Alida Montañez Salas. I'm the manager at the Bell Library in the corner of Pine and Gage, and I'm here to invite you and all the members of the Bell community to our summer reading program that will start on June 26 at 3:30. The theme of this year is the Dream Big, Read, and we will start with a program called Ring Carver from a puppet company that is nationally recognized. It will be a wonderful program for the family, the kids, teens, everybody. So I will leave some of the flyers and the schedules of the library in the lobby so that you all could take a flyer, and please, by all means, I invite everybody to come to the library. It's a wonderful library that this community has, and very proud of it, and we just aim to serve you day after day after day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A lot of you know you should take our kids and children to the library. They have a lot of great events, so we encourage you all to go to it. Julia Juarez from Assemblymember Ricardo Lara's office.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Julia Juarez with Assemblymember Ricardo Lara. I just want to congratulate you on choosing your new city manager. And I would like to, on behalf of the Assemblymember, would like to welcome him to the city, to the district, the Assembly District, and also make our office available to you. If there is anything that we can assist you, we will be certainly available to you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Hilda Rodriguez. After Hilda is Carmen Bea.
Good evening. My name is Hilda. I am coming today only to say welcome to the new administrator, Don Wilmore, and tell everybody that is present today that we needed to work together because this nation needed to see people together, forget many things that happened before, and try to save this nation, that no finding in any place better than this. This is the reason I say to everybody, please, working with the heart, not with friendship, working sincerely. I am the community. I don't have any benefit for the city. I'm working with my heart. And I tell everybody, please be together, working with your heart, not only for Bell, for this nation, that need it, each of us, they need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carmen Bea. After Carmen Bea is Ismael Morales.
My name is Carmen Vela, and I am happy that we have a new administrator. You know why I am very happy? Because the new administrator can give you things like that if you do something wrong, which one sometimes we need it. And then, because you know why? Last time when I was here, you choose the same garbage company. And everybody fight, and everybody's concerned about it. I guess we do the same thing than the people we used to do the same thing. But I hope so. Now, don't try to convince us, don't try to fight us. Just choose the police and that's it. Because if we're going to complain and this and that, or choose another sheriff, they come in here, anyway, after all, you're going to choose wherever you want. So please, stand up for the people. I know our packets, the Social Security don't go up and things like that, but the taxes go up. But please, try to convince us, please, that you're going to do a right choice, a right way. Don't try to tell us, yes, we're going to have another one company. You remember when you pick it up the graffiti? What? You pick it up the same thing. Now you pick it up the same thing. So I wish we start right now to convince us. Yeah, we're going to have the same police. We have a new chief police, and that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Ismael Morales. After Ismael is Alfred Arian.
Well, good evening there. Item number 6 that I know I put 2 cards, one for 10, but that'll be later. Item number 6, I request that you take that out of the consent calendar simply because it is a contract, it is an amendment of a contract, and so everything that involves contracts should be, for the light of transparency and for the public, discussed and questioned or whatever. I mean, there might not be any questions, but I request that number 6 be taken out of that. Mr. Wilmore, welcome to the City of Bell. I hope that this council will appoint, I'm pretty sure that they are pretty positive in appointing you, and I'm pretty sure that many residents of the City of Bell are appreciative of a new city manager. I hope that, I'm just hoping that you come to work for us, for the community, and of course, you have a city council that I'm pretty sure there's a lot of challenge. There might be some challenges, but that's always in government. But I'm pretty sure that if you guys work together as a council, as one unit, and as a city manager, as a staff, that I'm pretty sure that we can move forward on a lot of things. And I know that there's a lot of things out there that still need to be fixed. It's been almost 2 years that the corruption broke out, and we started to, I want to say, quote unquote, renew Bell, but I'm pretty sure that there's still a lot of things, and I don't want to say renewed because there's still a lot of things to be fixed. So I want to say welcome. I hope you get the appointment today in terms of that. So I guess that's all I want to say. I just want to say that I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to remind everybody that we need to be as transparent, we need to be as open as possible, and that applies to every one of you, and that includes talking with respect to people. That includes talking and communicating with people. We have to all be open to any criticisms, to anything that comes out of the public. You guys were elected to listen to our concerns and to just listen to us. There's nothing personal involved with the city. Some people I know say that I may bash on people, but it's not necessarily bashing. It's pretty much saying any concern, and if it's not addressed, then I'll just keep repeating myself like a broken record. And that's how you guys were elected. So I'm just saying that there's nothing personal, and if it's political that you guys want to take it, that's fine with me. But that's it. Thank you very much.
Alfred Arian. After Alfred is Nora Sainz.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Again, Arnie, time is flying. It's just been a blessing to have you here. And as time goes by, we're like 15 months and counting, that we're starting to see our city improve. And I just thank God for beautiful people like you and all those people here and there that are out here for the best interest of our community. And I just want to thank you personally. And again, thank the council members. We're stabilizing our community. We're starting to see gradual improvement. We got our attorney, Dave Alshire. That's a blessing for our community. We got a new city attorney, welcome, and city attorney. And again, like I say, you make the right decisions. You know what needs to be done. You were there in El Segundo, and you did a great thing. You exposed the enemy that was out there siphoning millions of dollars. Not siphoning, they were filthy rich. And they didn't want to give to that community that really needs it, like a whole bunch of other communities that need it. But I thank you for being honest and sharing what you did to us, because we were part of that citizen committee that had the honor to be there to see and talk to 4 of the CAOs before they got elected. And again, I just thank you for opening your heart, exposing things that need to be exposed. You make the decisions. Even if it takes costing you your job to do it, you did it. And we welcome you here because we know that they made the right decision in bringing you into our community. And I know there's going to be better days ahead for our community. And I wish all of you well. You're in my prayers. And I just hope we continue to see not only justice prevail, but also see transparency and giving the people what they deserve, an ear, so that you can hear what we would like to share with you, our thoughts and our memories. We're not our, just thoughts of what we can do to help improve our community. Okay, and then I would like to say in our police department, we did have the proposal. They put a halt on it. But I really feel that our police department, being here 80 years and counting, we need to keep them here. Even if Cudahy doesn't hire we don't patrol Cudahy, I hope that we will continue to stabilize our police. I already heard one of the motorcycles goes out once a month or whatever. Hey, that's a step in the right direction to generate income for our community. We need our police department. That's my opinion. And number 2, I just want to share this with the new CAO, that we have a disaster plan that's outdated. We need to look into that. We have a lot of people here that aren't familiar with this disaster plan. It had been written 15 years ago. We need to revitalize that. We need to see our people get involved just in case there is a disaster in our community, because there are lives at stake. And again, I want you to continue to do what you guys are doing. We thank you very much for everything that you do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Alfred, real quick, you did scare Dave Alshire by calling Doug the new city attorney.
Oh, I did correct myself. See,
okay.
Forgive me, okay?
I didn't know he had a law degree.
Nora Sainz. After Nora Sainz, Juliana Chico.
Good evening, council members. I want to welcome Doug Wilmore for accepting the opportunity to come into the city of Bell and hopefully make some positive changes. God knows we need them. The city still has a long way to go. It's not newly reformed, and it's not a new, there's still a lot of work to be done, pretty much just to get to the bottom of that. One of the other things that I want to address is early in the month of April, the council was talking about how Cudahy and how we were trying to propose a public safety option to the city of Cudahy, and some of the residents expressed that we wanted for a phase 1 to be conducted at the same time that we were trying to negotiate with Cudahy. I want to remind the council that you guys said that by the end of April we would have some type of an answer. We're already in the month of June, and we still haven't done anything in regards to that. You guys, time is money, and if we still have the Bell PD with their high salaries, that's money that we're throwing away. Aside from the public safety, some of the decisions that you guys have been making, you guys have been wasting the city's money when you guys could have been using that money for something else. I'm going to give an example as the trash cans. We paid close to $1 million on trash cans, and we kept consolidated, and there's nothing wrong with the current trash cans we have right now. That money that we spend on those new trash bins could have gone towards a credit that we residents wouldn't have to pay their trash bill for a few months. Or you guys could have looked for other ways to use that money where residents would feel like, you know what, this council is doing something for us. There's a lot of comments from the community where, why are you guys spending the money that way? Mr. Mayor, you have your own business. I know you don't make rash decisions like that. That's going to cost millions of dollars. This is a taxpayer's money. You're a taxpayer. We're all taxpayers. We're all vested in this community. And I really want to remind the council that you guys are here to represent the people and make decisions based on the community and not to save a department because they funded campaigns. That's it. Thank you.
Juliana Chico. After Juliana is Sandy Orozco.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Juliana Chico Sánchez y le doy la bienvenida al señor administrador. Espero que él sí sea una persona neutral y trabaje para todos los residentes. Ya que hemos tenido la decepción de que todo esto se está haciendo según con transparencia y hay gente inteligente según, pero yo veo que están equivocados. Votaron para atendernos la misma compañía, premiar a gente que nos ha estado robando junto con la ciudad, pero había un depósito de $1 millón y en vez de darlo para pagar unos 2 o 3 meses de la basura, lo ocuparon comprando botes de basura. ¿Ese es el premio, señores? ¿Premiar a la compañía que nos ha estado abusando? Creo que estamos llegando a lo mismo de antes. Los otros administradores estaban mandando gente a Maywood. Ahorita quieren mandar a Carajay. Creo que no es justo. Primero háganse responsables de lo que ustedes tienen que gobernar su ciudad y después ya expanden sus conocimientos a otro lado. Porque no creo que Carajay esté de acuerdo también en que vayan y le compren botes de basura, que eso es lo que están empezando a hacer. Por favor, traten a su gente como tiene que ser. Ustedes quieren respeto y nosotros también como residentes necesitamos ese mismo respeto. Y queremos que de hoy en adelante se nos permita hablar y que nos dejen dar nuestras opiniones si se pueden hacer esas cosas o no, que últimamente no nos han dejado hablar, señor, y es para todos. No hay yardas, las yardas las siguen cobrando. Creo que hay mucha gente, yo no lo he podido hacer, pero hay gente que necesita, aunque sea para que nos sigan robando, más los biles de utilidades, lo de la basura. Ya es mucho, el agua, en todo nos están cobrando. Por favor, si pueden hacer que las yardas sean gratis, la gente se los va a agradecer. Lo mismo yo hubiera dicho, necesitan un aplauso para estos señores que nos están ayudando, porque sí pensaron en la comunidad primero, antes de que no sé qué hubo detrás, para premiar a una compañía que vino igual que ustedes a engañarnos. Gracias.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and City Attorney, and of course, we welcome our new Bell City Manager by the name of Doug Wilmore. We welcome you here. My name is, by the way, my name is Sandy Orozco. I live at 4108 East 54th Street in the city of Maywood. As I stated earlier, we welcome you, and we're a city that has a passion for our city, and also a resident of Maywood. I have a passion for the city of Maywood. I'm a Southeast political activist, and multiple sclerosis can't stop this political activist. Actually, it should be the Southeast political activist because I'm all over the map. I'm in Cudahy yesterday. Today I'm in Bell. Next Monday I'll be in Maywood. To say the least, I'm not very happy with our city manager in the city of Maywood. And I'm going to make a lot of noise on that. You'll probably see us on the news on Monday. We're going to have a news conference on Monday, being that it's not a rumor. It seems like our city manager, Lily Myers, wants to, we have 4 days, the city hall being open, and now she wants to open it, just keep it open up for 3 days. Well, I have a problem with that when we have a city manager that makes $180,000 a year and only working 3 days a week. I want her job. Anyway, I think that's all I needed to say tonight. I'm kind of short-winded, very tired. And just remember to support the MS Association of America. I've always been briefed by Gloria Marino that we are going to have I believe in sometime in October, we're going to have a Puerto Rican festival. And of course, you know I'm half Puerto Rican. So get ready for that good old arroz con gandules. And number 2, they also plan on having a 5K MS run in the month of October. I'll keep you briefed in the next couple of months. But I do thank you for taking the time and listening to me.
Thank you. We now move to city manager appointment. Item 2A, approval of contract with the city manager, Doug Wilmore. Council, any questions or comments on item 2A? That's the first item on the calendar, Councilwoman.
Mayor, I wish to make a comment regarding Mr. Doug Wilmore. First of all, I want to welcome here and want to apologize to him for not making it here to the special meeting. Otherwise, he would have a 5-0 vote on the award. He comes, I believe, with outstanding courage and tenacity and research and overall, in my opinion, tough going in El Segundo, but we're glad to have you here. Well, at least I am. So I want to welcome him publicly. I don't have any particular issues on his contract. Myself or the mayor and I sat on the committee to look at this very closely, and I think we really negotiated down his agreement, and he was a good sport about it, and he particularly was very accommodating to the situation we have here in the city of Bell, and I think that's important for the community to know that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments from the council? No. Seeing there's no more questions or comments, is there a move to approve item 2A?
I'll make. Go ahead. Go ahead, ladies. Oh, thank you. I move item 2A.
Item 2A has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Madam City Clerk, roll call.
Harbert?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Alvarez?
Yes.
Councilmember Valencia?
Yes.
Councilmember Quintana?
Yes.
Mayor Saleh?
Yes. Now move to item 2B, swearing in of the city manager, Doug Wilmore. That will be performed by our city clerk, Rebecca Valdez.
Yes.
Huh?
Are you going to each other?
I'm going to ask if you can please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, and state your name,
I, Doug Wilmore,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear
that I will bear
true faith and allegiance
true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which
I'm
about to enter.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thought you were doing good there until you stumbled on the word well. We now move to, before I continue the consent calendar, I was informed by our pro bono Arnie Croce that item 9 will be continued for another agenda, or is it removed from the agenda? Item 9. Now move to consent calendar. Council, would you like any comments or questions on item 3 through 5? No?
Yeah, actually, well, 3 to 5. Can we have the hours of operations for the parks, and can we have an update on the Bell Skate Park? Because that park is always closed, and I was wondering if we ever open it.
Should we?
This is for item 5.
The skate park is open, I think it's 3 to 7 on weekdays, and then on the weekends it's open longer. But it is open. There may have been a time, if there was a time that it was closed, and we may have had a staffing glitch. I know there's been a couple recently, but for the most part, it's open after
So
the school hours.
Afternoon? What do we need to open it for longer periods of time, considering that people are going to go on vacation?
Let me get back to you in terms of the summer, because what I was thinking of was during the school year, those are the hours, and it's right after school's out. So I'll have to get you an update in terms of the summer hours. I'm sorry, I was working off the school hours.
Okay, all right. But let's just take a note that Bell continues to be a year-round school, so
Yes.
we have vacations all year round. So let's just look into the liability and the requirements to have it all around.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You want to pull an item, or just a quick question?
No, just, when will you come back with us with the hours?
That was going to be part of the budget presentation that at the departmental budget presentation, which will be on the 13th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any item that wants to be pulled, or we're all fine? Okay, is there a motion to approve item 3 through 5? Real quick, isn't item 6 part of the consent calendar?
Yes.
Well, it says on top, recommendation approve item 3 to 5. Okay, so it's item 3 through 6, my apologies.
Yeah, actually, I have a correction on item number 6.
So do you want to pull that, or?
I mean, it'll take like 5 seconds.
Go ahead.
Okay, basically, what we want to do with the amendment number 5 is we want to go on a month-to-month basis, right?
You mean 6?
Amendment number 5 to the contract.
But item number 6.
For item number 6. So the reason why I'm asking those, because we have the term of agreement that says that we refer to section 14, which talks about a 3-month notice, but if we're month-to-month, then no notice is required, right?
I think we pulled this.
That's what I was thinking about. Do you want to pull it?
I'm asking that we pull it.
Okay, so just hold off on that. Item 6 has been pulled. Is any other items to be pulled? Seeing there's no items, is there a motion to approve item 3, 4, and 5?
I'll make a motion to approve item 3, 4, and 5.
Items 3 through 5 has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Moved. Item 6, continuation of existing bus shelter cleaning contract.
That's my only comment.
Ms. Correa, huh?
Okay, go ahead. What was your question?
I guess I just wanted to make make a correction to the amendment, which talks about section 1, which the term refers to section 14 of the agreement, which refers to a 3-month notice requirement. But if we're moving to a month-to-month, then no notice is required.
Right, so what you would like to clarify is that in that section, it will just, under this contract will just be on a month-to-month from here on.
Yes, I want to clarify that they are not expected to receive 3-month notice on our behalf.
Is that okay to
Do you
be?
think there would be any problem with that?
I don't
They
think
do
there'd be a
understand
problem
it's
with
month-to-month, and
They understand it's month to month now.
so at the end of the month, or any time, you would simply advise them that it's not going to be renewed the following month.
Yes, that we're transitioning out of it, so.
They don't need a 3-month notice? They're okay with?
You know, we are currently on a month-to-month. They do not have an agreement. So I think by making this change, I think that would be acceptable.
I have a little question on that too, and a concern, because we're saying that the termination in accordance with section 14. I see section 14, the right of termination, that we have to give them, if we term without cause or with cause, it's a 90-day written notice.
Well, and I understand that refers back to the old agreement. So we should have made this inclusive and say it was on a month-to-month basis. And I think that they would be acceptable to that. If not, I'll bring it back, but I think they'll be acceptable to that. Really, the purpose for this was for the protection of the city, because right now we are using Prop A monies for a portion of our bus shelter cleaning, and in order to be in compliance with MTC, that is our funding agent, we have to have a current contract. So this is really for our protection, and so making that change, I think, would be acceptable, because you know it helps us as a city secure those funds.
Right.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm really having troubles hearing today. You mean to tell me, and if I heard correctly, this amendment is going to go back to them, and we're going to change this amendment to?
No, you're going to change it today.
We're changing it today?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
She said if we're changing it today. If they don't accept it, she'll bring it back to the agenda.
Yeah.
Is everybody okay with that change? Any more questions or comment? Is there a motion to approve item 6
I'll make a motion to approve item 6
with the changes or as is?
with the changes.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Item passes. Business calendar, item 7, Community Development Block Grant Administration Service Agreement Renewal. Staff?
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, Debbie Carita, your interim community services director. Last November, the city went through a competitive bid process, and in December awarded a contract to SJC3 Consulting for the Community Development Block Grant Administration Services for the 7 months of the current fiscal year. The agreement before you is for the next full year, beginning in July, for the fiscal year 2012-13 for the same services, with a potential to extend it based on performance and availability of funding into the next fiscal year. So we recommend approval of this contract.
Council, any questions? Seeing there's no questions, is there a motion to approve item 7?
I'll make a motion to approve item 7.
Item 7 has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Motion passes. We move to item 8, General Obligation Bond Workout Plan Implementation.
Yes, Honorable Mayor Saleh and members of the City Council, this is a transition meeting in terms of the agenda having been prepared under my watch and Doug being appointed here. So I just briefly will introduce Mr. Bill Statler, who has been back before the council several times. This really is an issue that the council first became aware of was last August, when he found out that the previous council had set up a potential for a large tax increase, and to avoid that, Mr. Statler's coordinated a workout process, and so he's here tonight to make recommendations on that. Mr. Statler.
Well, I am pleased to introduce this item because our goal back in August was to figure out how to mitigate the tax increases that would otherwise be required. I believe we've been successful in that, and as I'll kind of walk through the presentation, the recommendation, while there can't be any guarantees at this point, there's still process ahead of us. There's a really strong likelihood that no tax increase would be required in order to fully meet the bond covenants in the coming fiscal year. So the challenge, as the city manager pointed out, or the prior interim city manager pointed out, the current levy for the current fiscal year is $2.1 million. That was set by the previous council. And without council action, like we're recommending tonight, the debt service payment and the required tax levy is going to be $3.5 million next year. That's an increase of $1.4 million. That's over a 70% increase in the tax rate. And that would result in an over $100 per 100,000 assessed valuation in the annual levy on property owners. Before I go forward, I'd actually like to introduce three other members of the team that worked on that are here this evening. And if you ask any tough questions, I'm going to defer to them to do the answers. First is Anita Luck with your city attorney's office. She's worked with us very closely in crafting the workout and the documents before you. Don Hunt, who is with special counsel Fulbright Jaworski, and next to him is David Brosley, who's with K&N Public Finance, who you may remember from December when we brought the workout plan to you. So the solution, which the council conceptually approved in August and more formally finalized back in December, don't pursue the remaining bond projects with the funds that are available. Instead, use those to reduce the outstanding bonds that are out there today in order to reduce debt service payments and the related tax levy. So really the basic approach, there's three steps to that. We have about $50 million in bonds outstanding. We're going to pay off about $18 million of those bonds using the remaining proceeds that have not been spent from the original bond issues. And that in turn results in a lower debt service and required tax levy by about 40%. And as we discussed in the initial concept, when we just did the rough math, this should be able, on an order of magnitude basis, to mitigate the tax increase. We've now done a lot more work on this, and if things go well, we will be able to avoid any tax increases in the future. So the short story is, under the proposed approach that we're recommending and how to structure the revised debt service payments, it is possible that no tax increase will be needed next fiscal year or in the future. We can't guarantee this, however, because the actual rate will depend on a lot of factors that are outside of the city's control. We'll discuss later, one of the first things we're going to do is a tender offer, is to ask existing bondholders if they'd be willing to sell the bonds back to the city. We don't know how the market will respond to that tender offer. We don't know what the interest rates will be on the redemption escrow, which is the second thing we will set up after the tender offer. And then lastly, a lot depends upon what is assessed valuation in 2012-13, and we won't know that until July at the soonest. So those are three unknowns that until we get closer to finalizing the workout plan, we're just not going to know. But the worst case is some modest increase may be required, but this I can assure you, the tax rate that you will set for the coming fiscal year will be significantly lower than would otherwise be the case without the implementation of the workout plan that's before you this evening. Background, how did we get to where we are this evening? Back in 2003, the voters approved issuing up to $70 million in general obligation bonds for a wide variety of projects that were identified in the official statement. To date, $50 million has been issued. $15 million was issued in 2004 for a 30-year repayment term, and another $35 million in 2007. And at this point, the entire amount of that $50 million remains outstanding. The annual tax levy that has been set has never fully covered the debt service. In fact, the first tax levy, the initial bonds were sold in 2004. There wasn't even a tax levy until 2009-10. And the 3 years that the previous council set for the tax levy never fully covered the debt service. In fact, almost $6 million of the $50 million bond issue has been used solely to make the debt service payments on the bond. There are limits to paying the bonds off early, which is in essence what we want to do with about $18 million worth, because just like some mortgages, there are limits on early payoffs. And the GO bonds also have limits. It has a very standard 10-year early call provision. So that would be 2014 for those 2004 bonds, but those proceeds have been fully spent at this point in time. So there aren't any remaining proceeds, so we can't really call bonds from that issue. It would be 2017 for the 2007 bonds, and as we'll talk about in a minute, there's about $18 million available there that is unspent and uncommitted. So there are two basic options if we use that $18 million to reduce the outstanding bonds payable. The first option, or the first approach, is direct purchase. We approach the current bondholders and we ask them through a tender offer if they would like to voluntarily redeem their bonds with the city. This is, as described in the staff report, this is the best approach for the city because it will result in being able to call the most amount of bonds possible, and that will reduce debt service the most. But again, this depends upon factors that are beyond the control of the city. How receptive are the current bondholders to wanting to pay off their bonds early? That's really difficult to predict. I could give you 5 or 6 reasons why they might want to do that. I could give you 5 or 6 reasons why they might not want to do that. It's really going to depend upon the individual case of the individual bondholders that are out there. So the second option is it's redemption. Basically, the city prepays the outstanding bonds by creating an escrow fund. We take that $18 million in bonds that are available, we set that aside in an escrow account. It's used to make those principal and interest payments until those bonds are callable in 2017. And then, because we have the 10-year call provision, we can call the entire amount that's outstanding. There is a downside to this approach, and that's because the amount of interest we will earn on the bonds in that escrow account is far, far, far less than the interest cost on those bonds. There was once a time in the not too distant past where the potential to earn more interest on those bonds certainly would have been possible. But in today's marketplace, we're going to have negative interest earnings, if you will, on those proceeds. And what that results in 2017 through the escrow approach, we only really have about $14 million to be able to call bonds. So the more we can do through the tender offer, the more bonds we are able to call. As a practical matter, some combination of these scenarios is the most likely outcome. There will certainly be some bondholders that will want to tender or redeem their bonds early, and then we will do the redemption approach for the balance. Some combination is the most likely outcome. How do we determine the amount of bonds that are actually available to be called or placed in escrow at this time? Back in August 2011, you may recall, we thought we would have about $20 million available for either tender or redemption in reducing those annual debt service payments. Two things have happened to reduce that down to about $18 million. First off, as we recommended in the staff report, and it is actually recommended in the budget, that's the preliminary budget that's before you this evening, there's about $500,000 in state park grants over, I think, 5 different individual projects where the city is highly likely to have to repay those bond funds. It's not a done deal. Your staff is still working very closely with the state of California to try and hold on to as much of those funds as possible. That said, you know, hope is not a strategy. And so the city really needs to make sure that it has set aside adequate funds to make that repayment if that's what's necessary. We're recommending using the remaining proceeds from the bond funds to fund that. It's certainly eligible. The projects that the bonds are issued for are very similar to the grants that are probably going to have to be repaid. So it's certainly eligible, and it makes sense to use the bond proceeds you have available for capital projects to make those refunds. In the event that you are successful in holding on to some or all of those funds, that's not a bad thing either, because then you will have some capital project funds available to do other capital projects that you would like to do. But we recommend using some of that balance that's remaining to help fund those state park grant refunds. And then secondly, normally when a bond issue like this is set up, a reserve is set aside for cash flow purposes. If you think about it, you have to make debt service payments in August and February, but you won't receive the property tax revenues for those payments until December. So you have to fund the principal payment in August and the semi-interest payment that's due in August for about 6 months before you receive those proceeds. Normally, that reserve would have been established at the very beginning of the issue, but we don't have a reserve today. And in order to position ourselves for the next 25 years that bond payments are going to have to be made, we need to use some of the proceeds that are available now in order to fund that reserve going forward. We also need to set aside a reasonable reserve for delinquencies on the tax roll, and we're recommending a very, what we think is a prudent 5%. By the time we set up that reserve, by the time we fund for the state park grants, that $20 million that we thought we had becomes $17.7 million. Good news is, even with a smaller amount to do the redemption than we thought, still strong likelihood that no tax increase will be required. Structuring the revised debt service, there are really two key policy options that are available to you in doing that. The first one is to create level debt service. This was really the most common thing for cities to do. The levy every year stays about the same because the debt service payments are level, but the tax rate itself will decrease over time as assessed valuation grows. This is probably the most common thing for cities to do. On the other hand, the goal can be, let's try and have a level tax rate and use the fact that that assessed valuation is likely to rise over time in order to set a lower tax rate initially. And this is an approach that's used by other governmental agencies. It's probably most commonly used by school districts. You get a lower rate initially. That will also decrease over time, but more slowly than would otherwise be the case. Now, getting that lower rate in the first years is not free. Because you're deferring principal payments, you're going to pay more interest over the life of the bond. So on a present value basis, recognizing that the dollars you spend 20, 30 years from now are worth less than the ones that you pay today, it's about $250,000 over the life of the bond issue. So it's not a free solution, but if you remember, your goal is to try and mitigate tax increases to the maximum extent possible. And for that reason, we recommend, well, let me get to the recommendation. Talk about what the impacts are on the 2012-13 tax rate. And all of these numbers are based on the most conservative assumption that everything is called based on the redemption option. To the degree that we are successful with the tender offer, it'll make these numbers better. So right now, the tax rate per 100,000 of property is just a little over $150, $153 per 100,000 of assessed valuation. Next year, if you do nothing, that's going to go to $265. That's going to be over a 70% increase in the tax rate that you as the sitting council will have to approve. So this is what happens if you do nothing. On the other hand, if we use option one, which is that smooth tax rate option, that tax rate will remain the same. Okay? So if we go with a smooth tax rate option, there's a really strong likelihood that the existing tax rate will stay, and over time it will only go down from that point. On the other hand, if we move to level debt service, which is also a reasonable alternative, it's nowhere near the kind of increase you would otherwise experience if you did nothing, but it will almost surely result in some, even modest level of tax increase. And for that reason, we recommend the smooth tax rate option, because the main reason we're going through this process altogether is to try and mitigate tax rate increases, and this option gives you the best chance of no tax rate increase in 2012-13. This option best meets what I believe is your overarching goal, which is not to have to increase the tax rate for these general obligation bonds. So just a little bit of a summary on the tax levy and the tax rate. Without the proposed workout, that tax levy has to increase from 2.1 million to 3.5. And based on projected assessed valuation, that's over $100 per 100,000 increase. That's over a 70% increase from what's there now. On the proposed workout, the required tax levy decreases significantly. While we can't guarantee it, under option 1, it is highly likely that no tax increase will be required at all for 2012-13 or at any point in the future after that. Even under option 2, which is that level debt service option, the required tax levy drops significantly from what you would otherwise be required to do. Let's talk a little bit about the tender offer, because this is actually a fairly complicated item. The redemption approach, setting up the escrow account, that's done very frequently, very commonly in a number of refundings. The tender offer, this is not done very often, like maybe almost never. So this requires identifying who holds the current bonds. And this turned out to be a much, much more difficult task than I had anticipated, although you may recall David Broadsley was not as optimistic about this outcome, not as hopeful, let's say that, as I was. This has been really hard, and in fact, this has been a very time-consuming item for us. We've probably spent about 2 or 3 months just trying to work through how are we going to identify the bondholders. Because in the 2004 issue, most of those bonds are held by what are called institutional investors. These are large funds like the Franklin Fund. They hold these bonds, and it's really easy to identify who to talk with if you want to tender offer a large chunk of bonds. On the other hand, the 2007 issue is mostly held by retail investors, individuals and families that own these and in individual and sometimes relatively small amounts. These people are really hard to identify because the bonds are not held in their name, they're held in the name of their broker. Now, the broker knows theoretically who actually owns the bonds, but in order to approach those bondholders, you really first have to go through the brokers. And that's a much more complicated process because those people are hard to communicate with, and they generally hold to maturity. Retail investors are more likely, I bought this bond, it's got a 5% yield, I want the tax-exempt income, I want to hold this for the next 30 years. Institutional investors, on the other hand, much easier to communicate with because we know who they are, and they're more likely to be actively involved in trading in the secondary market, those that they hold. So we have to deal, in this case, with the retail bondholders in the terms of the 2007. So we have a balancing act here. We want the maximum number of people to tender their bonds because that will get us the lowest possible debt service. On the other hand, we probably have to give them some incentive to do that, or else why would they be interested in redeeming their bonds early? So the balancing act for us, which we won't really be able to do until we're really ready to do the tender offer in about 3 to 4 weeks, is we want that Goldilocks solution. We want to find that level that will get us the most amount of participation, but not at a rate that doesn't save us a lot of money over the redemption option. And we'll have to price that at the market at the time that we send out the tender offer. Implementation documents that are in front of you this evening in order to move forward is first off the resolution, which approves all of the other documents, and it authorizes your staff to take the actions that are necessary to complete the workout plan. The first of those is the tender offer itself. That's the offer to purchase bonds from existing bondholders. That's Exhibit A to the resolution, otherwise known as the tender offer. The second document, which is Exhibit B of the resolution, is the redemption escrow agreement. That's our agreement with U.S. Bank of how we will set up the escrow. So in order of kind of chronology, the first thing we will do is do the tender offer, find out what kind of tenders we receive, select those tenders that meet the city's goals, and then whatever that balance is, that's what will go into the escrow account. So we won't execute the escrow account until we have settled those tender offers. And then the last thing is the solicitation fee notice. That's the notice that will go out to brokers, encouraging them to contact their bondholders to see if they are interested in the tender offer. You have 3 basic alternatives, I think, in front of you. The first would be don't move forward with this workout plan. We strongly don't recommend that. If you don't move forward with this workout plan, you will have to set tax rates that are 70% higher in August than they are today. You could choose not to put the state park grant repayment, retain that. Again, we think you have a unique opportunity since you do have these bond proceeds available. These are eligible capital projects. This is the best way to avoid not overly impacting the general fund, and there's really very little downside associated with retaining these funds. The third option would be to implement option 2. This is a reasonable alternative, and that would be to have level debt service payments. This will be over the 30-year period of time, a slightly less expensive approach, but almost guaranteed if you pick the level debt service option, you will have to increase tax rates in August. Perhaps not by much, but almost guaranteed you will have to raise them at some level. And that's why we think the basic package that we presented to you, moving forward with the GO bond workout, including the park bond, possible park bond repayment, and moving forward with option 1, which is the level tax rate option, this is the opportunity for you to best achieve your overarching goals of not having to approve a tax rate next year, and with a strong likelihood that tax rates will only go down slightly thereafter. So next steps ahead of you. Hopefully this evening you will approve the resolution that will let us move forward. We will immediately launch the tender solution. Should receive those tender offers. We'll put in there that we need to receive those by June 28th. This very capable staff over here that understands all of this stuff really, really well will evaluate the tender offers and identify the amount that we're going to, and by accepting those tender offers, we'll identify the amount that we're going to redeem via escrow. We will then settle the tender offers by July 5th, finalize the escrow account about a week later, and then at that point the dust should have settled. We'll now know what our revised debt service schedule is. We'll get the assessed value information from the county, and then we'll return to you at the normal time for setting these kinds of special tax rates, probably your regular August 15th meeting, and that's when you will adopt the 2012 tax rate based on the results of the workout and the assessed valuation data that the county will provide you. And again, if all goes well, you should not have to increase the tax rate on August 15th, and in future years thereafter you should be able to set rates that are slightly less. And with that, so summary, the plan significantly reduces the tax rate from what would otherwise be required. While I can't guarantee it because there are just factors that are beyond our control, there is nonetheless a strong likelihood that no tax increase will be needed under the smoothed rate debt service structure. And with that, I and the other members of the workout team would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Stetler. Council, any questions or comments?
The only thing I would like to know, sir, and I don't think you can answer it, but someone probably can here. Where are we at as far as the repayment of the state bond?
You want to answer this?
You know,
the state park bonds is probably maybe best answered by Anita or by Arnold.
I can, yes. You know, this issue has been with the city for over a year now. You know, we continue to work with the State Parks Department. They continue to ask for additional documentation. Unfortunately, many of the documents that they ask for, we cannot find. They're not, they didn't exist, or they're not there. So I would say that, you know, given how long this has been going on, you know, that I'm less and less optimistic that we're going to be able to avoid paying, you know, at least a couple $100,000. I do think that, you know, one of the projects that I want to bring to conclusion in my pro bono status is to, you know, do everything to try to bring that to a successful conclusion. So the state hasn't said no, but to this point we haven't been able to satisfy them and are continuing to work with them.
Thank you.
Wait, are you referring to the 500,000 for the okay.
Any more questions or comments from the council?
I actually have one question. Thank you very much for answering my email. It was actually a lot easier. But I do have a question. You noted that the city is legally obligated to levy a property tax rate, right? Is that tax rate predetermined, or?
No, your obligation under the bond covenants is to levy whatever the tax rate has to be in order to fully pay the debt service. That obligation has always been there. That obligation isn't a new one. May not have been on everybody's radar screen, but a lot of things weren't on the radar screen until a couple of years ago. And that option of not meeting the bond covenants That's just not really available to you anymore because the bond insurer and the bondholders are well aware of your requirement to levy the tax rate. That's why really your best solution in terms of trying to mitigate the tax rate is to get that debt service down.
As much as possible. Thank you.
Any more questions from the council? Quick question. Not that the city, we want to do that, but if it gets repaid, does the city still have the capability of borrowing, or is that just cut off, or how is that? There's
Well-
still 20 million left to be borrowed.
No, yeah, I think technically your authorization to borrow, that you're talking about how you had authorization for 70 million
Well, okay.
and you've only issued 50.
Right.
So do you still theoretically have that authority to issue another 20 someday? I believe
about-
the answer is yes.
And then when you repay that, the 18 million, do you still have the authority to borrow, or it's?
You still have the authority, but there's two things I would caution you on. There is somebody out there that will lend you money. But given your most recent track record, you will not do that on the most favorable of terms.
It's just a question. I mean, I'm not.
I think your authority to borrow another $20 million and levy a tax rate in order to repay those, that still exists, but I don't think that is an option you will be able to exercise for a number of years.
And how can you stop that from happening, or it can be? Say, example, we're not on the council anymore, and the next council wants to borrow the $20 million. Can that still be done?
I believe they would be able to do that. The community, the voters approved that amount. I just think given the current markets, it would be difficult for you to approach the market, especially after you redeemed 18 million in outstanding bonds.
Understood.
But does that flexibility exist for future councils? I believe the answer is yes.
And taking advantage of that circumstance would require, the city council at that time, taking action in a publicly noticed meeting, with a public hearing.
Also, it does have to go on the.
You can't just arbitrarily.
Because it's already been approved by the voters.
But I mean, but it's still
has to go.
to actually
Okay.
issue the bonds needs council approval. You can't go into the city manager and say, hey, sell us $20 million of bonds.
All right, good enough. Just a question. All right, any more questions from the council? No. Seeing there's no more questions, thank you very much, Mr. Styler. Really appreciate your presentation. Is there a motion to approve item 7?
I'll make a motion to approve item 7.
Item 7 has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Huh?
Item 8. My apologies, item 8.
My apologies, sir. Item 8. Is there a motion to approve item 8?
I make a motion to approve item 8.
Item 8 has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
And
All-
Mr. Mayor, in terms of the motion, the question was whether you wanted to go with this
Oh, you're right.
smooth, the smoothing out of the payment plan. In making that motion, was it your intent to include that as the option that you're directing, or is it the other option?
Well, since I'm making the motion, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation, which is to follow option 1.
And the
Which is a smooth out.
resolution and the accompanying documents assume that that's the action you were going to take. It's probably
I
good
was
to
just- you were
clarify
just-
that, but the supporting documents have been drafted on the assumption that you would use the level tax rate option.
Correct.
And I don't think that's making it, I was just clarifying whether that was the motion you actually made, and you're clarifying that it was.
Thank you very much, Mr. Attorney. You're okay with that? You second it?
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Thank you. Item 8, motion moves. Passes. Item 9 has been continued, or just removed off the agenda. Now we move to item 10, consideration of a building and safety services request for proposal.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Before you tonight is a consideration of the Building and Safety Service Request for Proposal. Just a brief history of how we have provided building and safety services in the city. Before September 2010, the city used one consulting firm that provided full-service building and safety functions. In that, they have assigned staff that work at the counter and provide public information, They have plan checking services and inspection services, and that's all gone now. Right now, for the city, we have one full-time staff that provide the public information at the counter, and an interim building inspector that work part-time, 8 to 10 hours a week, or more, and as needed for the inspection services. The reason for the interim building inspector is that the full-time building inspector position has been vacated, and based on the service demand, we do not really need to have a full-time building inspector on staff. Our day-to-day activities, basically, we have the one staff that provide the public information. It's all handled by her. The plan check services and the related construction inspection are done by 4 consulting firms on a rotation basis, in a weekly rotation. Typically, the permit technician will take in the plans, have the calculate the fees, have the applicant pay the fees, and then she package all the plans and ship it out to the plan check consultant service consultants for that week. And as the plan check come back to the city, the permit technician would call the applicant, and the applicant would come and pick up the plans for corrections. And then this process, this cycle continue repeats itself until the plan checks can be approved and the permits can be issued. Since I came on board in November, one of my functions is to take a look at this building and safety operation and see if there's any, assess the service delivery and see if there's some improvements. Based on my observations, there are several things that we could improve. One is there is some gaps that we could improve on. One is the procedural gaps. Typically, a city would have a lot of handouts that tell the permit process, the plan checking process, what they are. It could be a flow chart. They may have checklists that help the applicant to prepare plans that they could submit for permit or for plan checking. Those handouts are lacking here in the city. However, this can be remedied. It can be remedied by having if we have a part-time building official, that person could help the city prepare pertinent handouts which can be used as a communication tool to educate as well as to inform the residents and the business community so that they could go through the permit and plan check process smoothly. Another gap that I found is communication. Since we are rotating using 4 consultant firms to do the plan check, plan checking requires a lot of communication between the applicant and the plan checker. And having 4 consultant firms, the incidence of having miscommunication is very great. Further, if the applicant challenged certain codes and the plan checker refer, the interpretation to the city, and we do not have a building official that could help in the interpretation of the codes, and that could lead to more time in the plan checking process and more frustration for everyone. So by having one consulting firm and a designated, even though a part-time building official could help in closing up this gap. Another gap I found is the efficiency and quality control. Obviously, if we have 4 consulting firms going on in doing the plan check, there is a significant deviation in the interpretation of the code. One plan checker may be more lenient in the application of the code, while another may be more absolute, and that could lead to unfair and equitable plan checking services, which is not fair for the business community and the residents. So having a designated consulting firm to do the plan checking would close up this efficiency and quality control gap. So in order to improve this operational procedure, I'm recommending that we should have one consulting firm, and to do that, we should have using an RFP process, request for proposal process, to find a highly qualified consulting firm to provide the building and safety services. And in your packet is the RFPs, the request for proposal, and it summarized the needs of the city. Basically, we need to have a part-time building official, maybe about 5 hours a week. Also plan checking services and part-time building inspector, about 8 to 10 hours a week or as needed. We will be sending out if it's approved by the council tonight, we will be sending out the RFPs to probably 8 to 10 firms, and for them to send back their proposal. The selection process is we will try to have a 3-member ad hoc committee. Committee members may be existing building official or directors from other cities, and they could review the proposal and pick, the most top 3 qualified firms, and then have oral interviews, and then make recommendations to the City Council. The City Council will have an opportunity to review the top 3, plus the recommended consulting firm for the building and safety services. Staff believes that if the council approves the RFPs tonight, we could complete this process probably towards the mid to the end of July. You may want to know how do we pay for the building and safety services. Very similar in the past, the building and safety services are paid for by the building permit fees and the plan check fees that we have collected. This budget year, we have a full-time building inspector, which is roughly about $62,000 plus benefits a year. And our anticipated cost for a part-time building official and a part-time building inspector is roughly about $52,000 a year. And in your staff report, there is a table that shows the revenue that we have taken in for the past 3 years, from 2009 to 2011. And based on that table, I believe that we have sufficient revenue to cover the building and safety consultant services. With that, staff like to recommend that the City Council approve the RFPs, the request for proposal, and authorize the staff to release that and send it out to consultant firms. That concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any question.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fong. Vice Mayor and Council, any questions or comments?
I'd just like to know, you don't think there's any need for a council member to be on the ad hoc committee?
It's up to the City Council if you believe that we should have one, at least, some council members in the ad hoc
I agree with
committee.
you. I was going to suggest that. I mean, we've been following a process of having council members on the panel, just in terms of guaranteeing, especially with this one, though, because this is going to be people that are going to be interacting directly with the public. So any handyman?
I'd like to propose that there be 2 council members on the ad hoc committee.
That's fine. I mean, it all comes down to whatever motion you guys do and whatever you add to it, so.
Well, if then, question for Ms. Alshire too, then, so we make a motion approving recommendation plus adding 2 council ad hoc committee members, would that be appropriate?
I think after you're done with all the council discussion, and a motion's in order, you might want to make that in 2 motions so that you can separate the issue from this approval to how you're going to constitute the committee. So if you do that 2 separate things, you don't mix up the issues and get them resolved.
Any other questions from the council? Seeing there's no questions.
Wait, no, there is. I was just waiting for him. You done?
What?
Are you done?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Do we have enough time for June 25th? Because what we're going to end up doing is calling individuals, right? You said you're going to mention 8.
Well, I have about 8 to 10 consultant firms that I like to send the RFPs proposal out. They have a little bit more than 2 weeks to respond, to send back a proposal. So I believe that there should be enough time to receive proposals by June 25th.
I might just add that there are a relatively small number of firms that do this, and it's pretty much similar services from one city to the next. So I do think that a proposal could be put together more quickly than for other kinds of things that you've been seeking proposals on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know.
Well, let me ask you this. You mentioned 8 firms that you have in mind. Is it going to be open just to these 8 firms, or are we opening up to anybody that could get
Well,
on our website and
first-
look at the RFP?
First of all, we will include the 4 existing firms that we are using for the rotation in the plan check. They will have that opportunity to participate. I have 4 other or 5 other firms in mind that other cities have used that I would also send out the RFPs.
Okay, I'm
It's
sorry.
also, it's open to anyone who wants to reply.
Okay, that's, I'm having troubles hearing today.
Specifically for building and safety contract services.
All right. Looks like it's open to everybody. Is that?
Yeah, it's open process, yes.
Any more questions from the
No.
council?
Just one recommendation. You talked about the procedural gap in terms of information. If we can have some of these handouts in Spanish, I think would facilitate the dissemination of information in the community.
Yes, I think that's the intent. Once we prepare the pertinent type of handouts, then it will be translated to Spanish so that you have both English and Spanish available, to hand out to the public.
In Arabic, if you so wish.
She wants to do it in Arabic, too.
Oh.
Any other
We could do
questions or
that
comments?
too.
Seeing there's no more questions or comments, is there a motion to approve item 10?
I'll make a motion to approve item 10.
I'll second.
Item 10 has been moved and seconded. Do they add the ad hoc now or after the motion? Mr. Attorney?
Now, once you take that motion and vote on it, then I think you could have a second motion.
Moved and seconded on item 10. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion moves. You guys want to make a motion?
I'd like to move that that the ad hoc committee for the RFP process for the building and safety inspection include 2 council members. Is that fair?
And do they name themselves now or later?
To be named today. I mean, I think just for the purpose of
Yeah.
of getting the work done.
It would be,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think it'd be the whatever process you'd like to utilize to figure out who the 2 members would be.
Thank you. Councilmember Valencia did a motion to add 2 council members as ad hoc committee. Is there a second?
Go ahead.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Who wants to be on the ad hoc committee? Councilmember Valencia. Who else?
Get the men on there.
Councilmember Harbour. No, I'm done.
You look like
I'm done.
you're a businessman.
No. Okay, so it's Councilmember Valencia and Councilmember Harbour.
okay, thank you.
Good luck, thank you. Now move to our public hearing, item 11, 2012-13 fiscal year proposed budget.
Yes, Honorable Mayor Saleh and members of the City Council. Close to 10 months ago, I attended the my first regular council meeting here in this room with the City of Bell, and that night the council adopted what was called the bridge budget for the current fiscal year 2011-12, recognizing that you are already 2 months into the fiscal year and that the budget had been prepared, in the absence of any type of really thorough public process, professional process, and directing staff to prepare the next year's budget, the 2012-13 budget, in a way that was inclusive of the community, that was informative, that was transparent, and that was a professionally managed process. So I'm very pleased to be here before you this evening for the public hearing on the budget and the draft budget. The 2012-13 budget was distributed to the council and made available on the city's website and to the public on May 25th. There are copies available at City Hall should a member of the public wish to come by and get a physical copy or look at a physical copy. It is on the website. And what I want to do tonight is to walk through some of the highlights of the budget. And this is a multi-meeting process to get from the budget being delivered to you on May 25th to adoption scheduled for June 20th. And I think for the first time in my life I have more slides than Mr. Statler. He left, I guess.
Actually, he's right behind you.
Okay. This is a budget of firsts. for the city of Bell. It's the first for the reinvented Bell thorough budget process for this year. It's the first budget that reflects the city's true fiscal condition and budgetary requirements. By that, I mean it does not reflect the outrageous salaries that the previous administration had tucked away in their budget. It also reflects, what is necessary to sustain city services, a full range of city services going forward. It's the first budget that includes feedback from the community on service priorities. It's the first budget that reflects the establishment by the council of citywide goals, the first budget to actively engage the management staff in budget preparation in the city, and the first budget that contains recommended fiscal and financial policies to guide the city towards greater financial and service stability. As I mentioned, this is a kind of a multi-meeting process. Tonight is the public hearing on the budget. After the presentation, we'll ask the mayor to open the public hearing, to take public comments on the proposed budget, and it is a proposed budget that has been recommended to you by the management staff. The budget was prepared under the direction and supervision of the interim department heads for the city of Bell. A week from tonight, and June 13th, we have scheduled a council study session. At that study session, each department head will give a more detailed presentation of the budget for their department and be available to respond to any questions that the council members have about the budget. And then after that study session, we would be back to the council at your regular meeting on June 20th with a recommended budget for your adoption. We tend to think of a budget as numbers and a budget in terms of dollars, but what the budget of a city does is it translates to the provision of the services that the community, the residential and the business community expect of the city and expect you to perform. So, what a budget provides is it allows the 911 calls to be taken. It allows for the patrol and call response. The budget facilitates the street maintenance and the improvements of the streets in the community. The budget allows the city to maintain its sewer system, its storm drain system, its lighting system. I've been in this business a long time, and I know that when sewers start flowing up into people's homes, that's when you find out what people think is very important about democratic government. The budget also allows the community or the city to continue to provide the community the youth programs, the recreation programs, the community service programs, the senior programs that so many residents and families enjoy. The budget allows the city to continue to maintain and keep open the city parks, the city facilities, this facility, Little Bear Park, Veterans Park, the soccer fields that are used. So it provides for the maintenance and for the staffing of those facilities that add to the quality of life of the people who live in the city of Bell. The budget provides for the various handyman and home repair projects that are undertaken by community development block grant funds. The budget allows residents who need to come in and get building permits, planning permits, businesses that seek to open up in Bell, all of the services that make Bell a good place to live and that allow Bell to be a place where people want to come and live and have a business are really expressed in the budget. I think you can understand and maybe appreciate the importance of what the city does when you start thinking about a city that has a poorly maintained infrastructure that doesn't have adequate response capability for emergency calls. This budget really builds on accomplishments, and I think the community can be justifiably proud of the accomplishments under the direction of this city council during the past year. One of the commitments of the city council was a commitment to transparency, to community outreach and civic engagement. During this past year, you've had public meetings on transit and solid waste services. There have been educational forums on city finance and on police services, a community priority setting session, There was a use of a 12-member community panel in the selection of the city manager. The city has initiated work on a new website. So in a way that I think Bell had not experienced in 20 years, you have opened up government and the process of government and decision-making to the residents of Bell. I know one of the main concerns in the community and by the City Council, lowering taxes. This year, the City Council will remove the solid waste and recycling assessments from the property tax bill. And in doing that, you'll be basically cutting the residential refuse bills of the residents of Bell in half by 48%. One of the reasons that that reduction is able to occur and that contributes to that reduction is the City Council using the excess money that was collected for solid waste collection to purchase new trash bins so that the residents would not have to pay for that again through their garbage assessments. Included in the recommended budget is a reduction in the assessment that you put on the properties for landscaping and lighting by 12%. And as tonight, the general obligation bond workout plan that this council authorized and directed the staff to undertake will avoid having to levy increased taxes that were set up to be imposed on the community by the previous city council. So a lot of work on your behalf to address the issue of taxes. The city has during the past year awarded new contracts and reduced costs, graffiti abatement, street tree maintenance, solid waste services, all through RFP processes. You've also started to build a foundation for an effective organization, an organization that can deliver services consistently to the community. You've selected a new city engineer for the city of Bell. You've developed modern, up-to-date job descriptions, which never existed in the city of Bell. You completed a compensation study, so you are able to develop, going forward, a fair and financially sustainable compensation policy. You've selected a permanent city manager and initiating recruitment for permanent department directors so you can move from this transition phase of your reform efforts to a more permanent phase. You've adopted city council rules and procedures and a reimbursement policy. You've made significant investments in technology to improve organizational efficiency, service effectiveness, and communication to the community. You've also developed the workforce through having the workforce participate in professional organizations and to attend educational seminars and activities that will allow the workforce of the city to be more efficient and more effective in their jobs. You've also, what is reflected in this budget, what has evolved over the past 9 months, is a reorganization of all the city functions into 4 city departments: the Community Development Department, Community Services Department, Finance Department, and Police Department. This is 1 less department and 2 less management positions that the organization had under the last permanent administration. We've also developed a professional budget process. As I said, this budget that is recommended for your adoption builds on all of those accomplishments of the past year and addresses the council goals that you established in January in response to community priorities. One of the major council goals for this coming year is continued reform. This budget includes and recommends that there be a community visioning process, including a community survey, so the community and the council can begin to talk about, as you move forward, what do you want your community to look like, to be, what are the real priorities in the community. This recommends an update of the city general plan, that basic land use document that will guide the physical future and development of the community. This budget recommends developing performance measures for the city organization so that the public and the council can track and know what are we getting for our money, for the tax money that we spend, and how well is this organization performing. Adopting a classification and compensation plan is one of the recommendations that is included here. Launching a new city website, continuing to invest in technology and to make technology operate. So like implementing an electronic recreation registration system. One of your major goals was fiscal health. This budget recommends that the city develop a long-term financial sustainability plan that will be able to, again, stabilize city finances, look at all taxes, utility taxes, business license taxes, and develop a firm plan of how can you sustain services going forward. This budget will continue to update contracts and conduct competitive bidding processes for ongoing services. This budget includes the implementation of replacement plans for things like heating and air conditioning systems and automobiles so that the city can ensure that they can continue to maintain facilities and services in the future. This budget includes the recommendations of policies that will, over time, as the city's fiscal health improves, build up towards the 25% reserve goal that we had talked about. This budget focuses on the council's priority of economic development, rebuilding the commercial tax base of the city of Bell. There's recommendation and funding proposed to develop an economic development strategy for the city of Bell, updating the city's zoning code, the completion of an assessment of city-owned properties, and prepare a plan of how to use those properties to the city's economic advantage and community advantage, and liquidate those properties that are not needed for public purpose and generate revenue from the liquidation of those properties that can be used for other community improvements. This budget also recommends a review and update of the city's plan check process and permit and inspection fees. This budget, one of the council goals is police protection. Consistent with this budget will be the completion of the implementation of community policing programs. The police department has set some specific goals to increase total arrests by 5%, decrease traffic collisions by 5%. One of the major goals is recreation programs. This budget recommends establishing a Bell Student Summer Hiring Program. It increases the number and types of classes available for youths and seniors. It initiates the use of an automated recreation registration system, and this budget reflects the first full year operation of the Technology Center. Other objectives, community appearance. This budget recommends the removal of all substandard Bell Community Housing Authority trailers or mobile homes. It recommends the development of a pavement management program that will allow the city to rationally allocate the dollars that you can use for street maintenance and repair so that you can maintain in good condition the overall streets of the city of Bell. This also recommends the city develop a 5-year capital improvement program. Again, looking towards the future, what are the infrastructure improvements that are going to be necessary to keep Bell a good place to live and a good place to do business. Having stronger community was one of the goals of the City Council. This budget includes increased funding for city special events, property maintenance, increased public outreach to provide information to residents on property appearance and maintenance. It recommends reducing storage of debris and junk in public view and ensuring and improving the maintenance of properties. Code compliance, another significant council objective. One of the recommendations for this coming year is that there be a survey done and determination of illegal garage conversions, that there be a reduction in the number of trash bins in public view, and a reduction in the number of inoperable vehicles stored in violation of the code. A couple of others that you identified in January, your goal setting, non-vehicular transportation. The council will be soon awarding a contract for a coordinated public transit program, including dial-a-ride, on-demand taxi, and fixed route. It's recommended in this budget that funds be set aside for a bikeways study, and park and community center maintenance would come underneath the capital improvement program. So there's a very ambitious set of objectives that have been set in this budget for the council to consider as you go through the adoption process, and ultimately, based upon your direction, for the organization to move forward with. There are also over $2.2 million in recommended capital improvement projects for next year. I won't go through all of these, but you see the various street sections that are recommended to be improved as part of the city's capital improvement program. And just some highlights by the numbers. If you take out this issue of selling back the bonds and look at the city's budget, all funds, next year, the revenue coming into the city for the provision of services to this community is estimated at $30.6 million. So that's the size of the organization and the financial responsibility that you as council members have on behalf of your community for a $30 million a year organization. 43% of that is in the general fund. That's the fund where property tax, sales tax, utility user tax, a whole host of general revenues come, and that supports basic core city services. Other funds make up about 33% of the budget. The Bell Community Housing Authority, a little under 3%. The used to be the Community Redevelopment Agency, now called the Successor Agency with this change in state law, about 8% of the budget, and then debt service, about 7% of the budget. Now, if you step back and say, okay, how about the expenditures? And again, the total expenditures equal the total revenue, rounded up 30 million, 30.6 million. You can see where that money goes. And policy management and support, which basically supports the city council, the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, all of those kind of general government functions, takes up 8%, community development 4%, community services 22%, so on. You see the different distributions. I'll go into these in just a little more detail. One of the, given the way cities prepare budgets, you have 30 different funds, and money from these different funds, which must be accounted for separately, goes into, shows up in different places in the budget, but they tie back to a particular function. So trying to give you an overall picture, setting aside which fund monies come from, what is spent here. So in this area of policy management and support for all of the administrative finance functions, this is largely a general fund expense with 78%. There are some expenses in the retirement fund, some expenses in risk management, but the total expenditures, $2.4 million. In the police department, this is the largest overall single portion of the city budget. The total cost of providing police service to Bell for next year is a little over $8 million. 5.4 million of that comes from the general fund, 15% from the retirement fund, 12% from the risk management fund. Then you see other different small percentages for asset forfeiture funds, for COPS grants, and for other grants. Community Services Department, there's a lot of pieces of this pie because it's a department that has a lot of different services under its umbrella. If you step back and look at everything that's under the direction of the Community Services Director in that department, it totals up about $6.7 million. This gets a little small, but you see 24% is general fund, recreation programs, community services programs. Again, I won't go through all of these, but the gas tax, which is used for street maintenance, is administered out of community services. The BECHA is administered out of community services. So you see the orange 16%, $1 million, that's sewer maintenance. Again, all the maintenance functions come out of community services. So the city uses all of the funds that it has available at its disposal to meet the community needs and expectations. The Community Development Department, responsible for the planning, building inspection, code compliance, successor agency activities. You can see that combined expenses are $1.3 million, with only about 44% coming from the general fund, of the retirement fund, the successor agency activities, and the risk management fund. Capital improvement projects, this is funded from a number of sources. You'll see it's a very little portion of general fund. It says $100,000, 3%. We've put that into the budget so we can avoid having the roof leak at City Hall next year and get the roof replaced. You'd like to, over time, and maybe 5 years from now, 7 years from now, you'll be able to devote more general fund money to your capital improvement projects. But you can see some of the large areas where you improve infrastructure. Certainly gas tax, 17%, that's for street maintenance. Sewer, 13%. Community development block grant, lighting and landscaping at 9%. And then there's a kind of a catch-all in the budget called non-departmental. And non-departmental expenses are expenses that really service all departments, and the way the funds are currently structured and the accounting system is currently structured without the sophistication to allocate out all those funds. Things like utilities make up a big share of the non-departmental expenditures, so gas and electric bills. The risk management, out of the risk management fund comes the purchase of insurance premiums, the settlements for claims where the city has to settle claims, some of the litigation costs for the city, workers' compensation expenses comes out of non-departmental. And then debt, this shows all of the debt that the city is currently responsible for, $6.6 million. The biggest chunk is the general obligation bonds that we talked about earlier. You see the Beecha operation, the housing authority has about $1.3 million in outstanding debt. Successor agency, a little over $2 million in outstanding debt. Now, just kind of closing off here, transitioning to the general fund, and that's where most of the focus is in the community's interest and in the council discussion is on the general fund, because that is the fund where, as I said, property taxes, sales taxes, utility user taxes come. It provides and funds the police department, planning and building activities. Recreation programs are in the general fund. So the total, all the revenue or sources that we're estimating to come into the general fund over the next year, $13.7 million. You see some of the big chunks on both sides of this pie, 28%, $3.8 million in property taxes. On the other side, $3.3 million in utility users taxes. $1.8 million in fines and forfeitures, $1 million in franchise and business taxes. So this gives you a sense of relative importance of these funding sources. Now, and we've talked about this in the past, it's not so much that the city's utility user tax is so high. It is on the high side. But one of the reasons it takes up so much of this general fund or contributes so much is because you've seen a 40% reduction in your sales tax over 3 years. So building back that commercial tax base, will help the city be able to fund its services with more robust sales tax revenue. These are the general fund expenses. Again, $13.7 million. $5.4 million in police, $3.2 in community services. Transfers out is really, the city, this is more of an accounting function in terms of transferring money, for example, from the general fund to the risk management fund to support risk management efforts. I think one way to put where Bell has come in historical perspective is to look at the general fund budget that was last general fund budget prepared by the last permanent administration and compare that to what is recommended in this budget. So the last budget prepared by the last permanent chief administrative officer had a general fund budget of $18 million. Now, in 2012-13, we are proposing to you a general fund budget of $12.5 million. So there's a lot of reasons why this changes. Certainly a significant reason is the lack of, the city's no longer shouldering these outrageous salaries, and also the size of the workforce has been reduced as well. Now, the budget for the city as proposed to you is fully funded. By that I mean we have enough revenue projected for next year to fully support all of the expenditures that are recommended to you. One of the reasons we're able to do that for this year is we are recommending the use of some one-time funds for providing city services, particularly about $500,000. There's a process by which the city can exchange some CDBG funds and some Prop A funds with other cities for general revenue. So what I've shown you here is when you look out, you always want to be looking beyond this coming year and say, what do things look like for the next year, so you can begin to plan, so you can have a balanced and fully funded budget beyond this current year. There is projected to be for 2013-14, not this coming fiscal year, but the next one, there's a structural deficit, a difference between what are called ongoing revenues. These are the revenues, the taxes, the fees, the fines that you would expect to come in on a regular basis every year, and ongoing expenses, the expenses and costs for all of your services, for personnel and supplies. We're projecting at this point a structural deficit of $337,000, which is about 2.5%. So that's not a huge number. That is a number that I think the city will be able to easily close that gap over the course of the next year, and emphasize you have a year to do that, to close that structural gap. One of the early stages of this process, going back in February, was the presentation of a 5-year forecast. What this shows is looking at the budget that's recommended for 12-13. We are projecting a surplus of revenue over expenditures of about $25,000. If we're able to close that gap of $337,000 for next year, then the city continues, then you start to climb back out as revenues start to pick up. So you can see that getting where we are for this next fiscal year, and then going where you need to go for 2013-14, those two steps will get the city back on a stable path where you can start. And I want to draw your attention to the bottom line here where it says ending fund balance. The ending fund balance ties back to that discussion about having a 25% reserve for unexpected uncertainties. So we're saying at the end of this next fiscal year, you'd have $1.2 million. You can maintain that. That's about a little more than a third of what you'd want to have, and then it starts to climb back up. Now, these are projections. These are estimates. Things change. There are uncertainties out there, but this is what we're looking at. So to kind of get to the bottom line for the general fund, the budget that's recommended to you is a fully funded budget for 12-13. And I want to thank Anita Lawrence, who's one of the co-interim finance directors who manage the budget process. It takes a tremendous amount of people to put the budget together, all of the department heads and other management staff that worked on this. But Anita, like any good finance director, tends to be conservative on the revenue estimate. This is not a state of California budget where I'm standing up saying we're going to get millions and millions and millions over here. This is a fairly conservative estimate of revenues in the general fund. You can expect your expenditures a year from now, when we're talking about, gee, what happened last year, the expenditures will be less than the budget, again, barring some unforeseen need for to spend money that we don't anticipate at this time. Because the budget is prepared conservatively also from an expenditure side. So, for example, the budget assumes that every city position is filled 365 days. Well, that doesn't happen. People leave, positions are vacant, interim department heads will be here for a couple of months. Their cost is less than what's budgeted for permanent department heads, so you will pick up some expenditures will be lower than what's in the budget. So there is a projected stable fund balance, of actually increasing it by a small amount, $25,000, but an increase nonetheless. The projected gap to close 2 years out, 2013-14. There are always uncertainties in the, what can happen in the economy. Certainly, and we've talked about this several times with the, legal cleanup actions that are fallout from the scandal. There could be some additional financial exposures that the city might have to face. There are opportunities to rebuild the local commercial revenue base, however. And, when you just look at the SOP Chevrolet, at the Western Auto property, those are two prime sites for retail development. Eventually, you will get good quality development there that will strengthen your commercial tax base. There's other opportunities out in the Area 5, the industrial area. And also, it is recommended, during this next year that you develop a long-term financial sustainability plan. So that concludes my presentation. Again, I want to thank everyone for their work in putting this budget together, and it really has been a lot of fun. We're going to start from ground zero and put together a whole new budget for you. I guess the last thing I would say about the budget that I think is distinctly different from what the Bell community has had for many years. As you look through the budget, as I know you have, and I encourage members of the community to go onto the website and or to come to City Hall and look at a budget, there's a section in the budget called programs. And within that section, there is a description of every program, and a program really is a group of services. Say police patrol is a program, police detectives is a program, youth sports and activities is a program, handyman is a program. But there is a description of each and every program that the city provides out of the 30 funds. So you can find out exactly what your city does, what is in the budget for that, what changes are significant from last year, what the staffing is. We've also identified what are the major objectives, and when I walk through objectives tied to your goals, these will show up as you look at the specific program pages. And we've also suggested, kind of for future reference, we've put in suggested workload measures for the different programs and functions, and that this budget is an evolving document. Very significantly different budget than what Bell's had in the past. It will continue to get better. Doug will continue to make it better. You'll start to plug in workload measures and performance measures. But again, it's with great pleasure, and I think speaking on behalf of the organization, all the employees of the organization, great satisfaction of which we recommend this budget for your consideration. And with that, I could take questions, or time for you to open the public hearing. We could respond to questions after that. Thank you.
Can we ask questions now?
Thank you, Mr. Croce. Please.
Can we ask questions now?
You want to ask questions now? Go ahead.
I have a quick question. When I guess you can pull back the graph when we have the budget. We talked about the elimination of the surplus property fund. Did we merge it already in that graph?
Yes. Yeah. The surplus, one of the changes, and there are many changes that have been made to this budget to improve transparency to the council and the community, and to simplify as much as you can being able to understand and read the budget. The city maintained a surplus property authority, which took takes lease revenue from the property that's leased to the railroad out in the industrial area. That money came into the surplus property authority and then was transferred to the general fund. So what we've done is to really, this coming year, eliminate that fund and have that money being shown up as a direct revenue to the city's general fund. So yes, that is accounted for in.
Go back to that slide.
That one?
No, one more.
Getting fancy.
One more. Okay, that one. So that includes it already. So it's 12.5. So that actually means that we cut down salaries significantly more.
Salaries and operating expenses, again, between the last budget prepared by the previous permanent administration and this budget. And the city revenues have gone down quite a bit as well. Property tax, sales tax in particular has dropped, but it's a significantly leaner organization, both in terms of structure, employees, and management.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions from Vice Mayor Council? Seeing there's no questions or comments, thank you very much, Mr. Croce.
Thank you.
We now open up the public hearing. Whoever wants to speak on item 11 regarding the 2012-13 fiscal budget, please stand on the podium and state your first and last name.
Good evening, Jose Moreno. I'm sure most of you know me. I have a request. Hopefully you can. I need all those graphics. I don't have any copies of those graphics here, the ones that you put up on the. I need all those graphics. Please.
We will post this presentation on the city's website, and we can make copies, and I can either email it to you or you can come down and pick up
those
copies.
graphics are very interesting to me personally, because from what I checked on the budget at 12-13 and what it says on some pages, in my brain it does not come to the same amount. It's way different. So I need those graphics to compare. I really appreciate that. And you did an excellent job of explaining everything, even better with those graphics than what it is in here in the budget, in my own opinion. Okay? And I appreciate your time and everything you've done for us. I know that you've done, you've given us 110%. So hopefully the new CAO will do the same thing. And he'll be also, independent and out of the square, not out of the circle. Think out of the square. Hopefully, I expect that from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, anybody want to speak on item 11?
I guess we're nearing the grand finale of the budget. Again, I just want to thank you very much for being a blessing to our community, Arnie, as well as all of you. You've been a pleasure and an honor to see and improve our community. I can't leave without saying thank you. And again, we're going to miss you, but I know you're not going to miss us because hopefully you'll be coming back. But again, thank you very much. And I just want to say thank the council and everyone for just continuing to do what we need to do, get back on the right track. There's going to be better days ahead. I just hope everybody will work together in our community for the best interest of our community. United we stand, divided we fall. I continue to say that because we are unity now and hopefully forever. Okay, again, thank you and God bless you guys.
Thank you.
My name is Carmen Vela. For first time in so many years when I come over to the city council meetings, for first time, I thank him with all my heart because he teaches us. He gives us the knowledge, things that we don't know. He gives us the future of the Bell. Thank you very much. He gives us, even you, everybody of you, he gives us that knowledge. Then probably we don't know nothing about laws, what was going on, what was right, what was wrong. I really thank you with the bottom of my heart. Because sometimes I criticize the other ones, but I don't know if I was doing right or wrong. But I thank you with the bottom of my heart for that. And I hope so you have the opportunity to learn more things from him. And that way you learn how to behave and you learn how to take care of us. Because one thing is to say and the other thing is to do it. For example, when I find out about the garbage, I really feel sorry about us. But the way we spend money from the garbage cans, I really feel sorry for us again. Thank you.
Ismael Morales. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Croce for composing this budget. I think it was a very difficult thing to do. But now I come here to, I know there's some people that are saying it's great, but I come here to ask a few questions. And I know it's a lot of numbers, but so it's like I always say, let's get out that piece of paper and a pen and let's go to it. On page C9, I know that on the slide, I don't know if I wasn't sure if it's the same thing, I don't know if I was paying attention or not, there was a mention that on revenues there was $30.6 million and on expenditures on $30.5 million. And on this page, on all funds, we have $28.3 million on revenue and $48.4 million on expenditures. I would like to get that clarified because if we are getting more, I mean, we are getting less and we're spending more, I think there's a big issue. So if one of you guys can explain that, that would be great. I think if it's not explained, then I would have to assume it's a deficit. In terms of on page C10, and I know I've noticed, and I was going to ask the staff to post the pie charts online. I think the pie charts did help a lot in terms of breaking everything down. But I know that on the general fund, it mentioned here that for the project it doesn't even have the column for the 1213, but you said 13.7 million alone, and it says 11, but that's just that. And oh yeah, it says right here for the general fund it's 12.7 million, and you put on the slide 13.7 million. So I don't know if that was a clerical error or whatnot. And in terms of, and I know that, and I was noticing here on the city council thing, 200. I know that in that budget of 208,000 from 88,000, I think that, I mean, counting the little monies, I think, you know, in terms of saving dollars. I know that there's some, I know that we're going to stream internet, but I know that in the insurance, it goes up double. And I think that, and I quite honestly think that those people that are taking insurance out, I think you guys deserve to take the $677, no benefits. Because you guys are here to serve. I don't care if you tell me, oh, well, it's 20 hours, you know, we come here every, oh, too bad. You guys came here to serve. And I know you guys have jobs, or you guys don't have any jobs. Well, I feel sorry. And you know, good luck. But anyways, and so, but I know that in the community services, what I would have liked to see in the budget was specifically, and let me just conclude with this, specifically on what are we spending it on. So I would have loved to see that on the budget. Otherwise. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
I have a question and a few comments that I want to make. On page C9, regarding revenues, in 2010 to 2011, we went from 1.5 million, and this year we projected 24,000. I'm sorry, we projected 117,000 and the budget called for 24,200. That's a significant difference, and I wanted to know if I could get some clarification on that. Now, as far as the expenditures, I'm pretty sure most of you guys have heard that one. It's a saying where you reap what you sow what you reap, or you reap what you sow, whatever. We have thousands of kids in the community, not just kids. We have senior citizens, we have teenagers, we have adults that they could benefit from more money being spent on programs. And the fact that for Parks and Recreation, for 2012 to 2013, we're spending $245,000. We should look at this community as an investment where we need to invest in the future of the city. We need to invest in the future of the residents. If residents are better prepared, they're better educated, they get better jobs, there's more money coming into the city. And the fact that we're not looking at the resources that we have in the city, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about kids, you know, that's kind of sad. You know, we really need to focus on having better programs for everybody, not just the kids. I'm talking about everybody who wants to have a better future. And the fact that we only have $245,000 for that, that's not good. We're spending a little under $9 million on a police department that I think there's maybe like 30 to 35 employees. And we're spending less than $500,000 on thousands of kids in the city. Something's wrong with this picture. 3 of you guys, I don't know if you guys feel indebted to the police department, but you guys should be, your first commitment should be the community and the people here. Mr. Wilmore, I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to drive down our streets, but Bell wasn't like this 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Bell right now, it's heartbreaking for someone that grew up in the city, that's been living in this community for 27 years. You know, we had Saab Chevrolet that left. We don't have any decent businesses in the city. We have no restaurants. Where if we want to do something, we have to drive outside of the city, either to Downey, sometimes to Orange County. And regarding the Parks and Recreation programs, we have to go over to Bell Gardens because they have more programs for the people there. I mean, I'm from the bottom of my heart, I'm asking you guys to start investing in this community. Please. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on item 11?
Good evening, Fernando Chavarria. I want to draw your attention to, I have a couple questions, to page B6 of the budget. In the first paragraph, it reads in part, this is not really new revenue, as it was previously treated as a transfer from the surplus property fund. Real growth in the general fund is budgeted at $292,000. I'm kind of paraphrasing there. What does that mean? Or provide an explanation, if you will. Paragraph 2 says, in part, this is a net number that reflects increased costs associated with full staffing of the organization, increases in recreation services, police services, facility improvements, and technology investment. Cost increases were partially offset by a restructuring of the city attorney budget, as discussed elsewhere in this message. What does that mean? The third, right below it, that paragraph, it says this increase reflects a combination of transfers in and transfers out, including an increased transfer from the general fund to, and I think this might be important, to pay for the cost of retirement above and beyond what the pension tax will cover. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think, if memory serves me correctly, this city has, at least in modern history, made 100% contribution to the retirement fund. So that means, at least in my mind, the city, the community, the taxpayers pay up front. And then we have a tax levy on current property owners. So you pay there to cover the pension cost. And what I want to know is if here too, these funds taken from the general fund to cover the pension costs is a third source of revenue to cover the cost associated with retirement funds. Those are 3 questions. Give me just a second if you don't mind, if I may. Okay, B12, page B12 under opportunities, first paragraph. I think this is a very important point, and I think it's important because the council has repeatedly said that it is important. And indeed, your actions, the actions you took, emphasize that importance. It says, as this budget goes to print, the city is in active discussion with the city of Cudahy regarding Bell reassuming the provision of police services to Cudahy, et cetera, et cetera. Providing police services to Cudahy will produce an ongoing annual gain to the city's general fund in excess of $1 million. This would be a significant step to a more stable Bell. I have been monitoring the situation to the best of my ability in Cudahy, and with all due respect to Cudahy, I have no confidence that that discussion in Cudahy is going anywhere soon. And if in fact the idea of policing Cudahy was, to put it in the words of the budget, a significant step to a more stable Bell, then I think that it's in order that we pursue exploring how much more stable we might be if we pursued policing with the sheriff department. Those aren't my words. That's not my reasoning. Those are words from your document, and it's reasoning that I think any reasonable person can deduce.
Mr. Chavarria, your time is up. Thank you.
Okay.
3 minutes. No, 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Joe Carmona. I don't have a complaint or request for anything. I just want to make a simple comment that looking at this budget, it's apparent that a lot of work went into it. And the presentation was very good and clear with the pie charts and what have you. Thank you for your hard work. I'm sure that right about now, Doug is hating you for setting the bar so high. But we have faith in you, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on item 11? Seeing no one wants to speak, I'm closing the public hearing. Council, any questions or comments? Or
Your Honor, I can respond to.
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
I think I kept pretty good notes going through here. In terms of the page C9, Mr. Morales, the big difference, the $48.4 million in expenditures is the 17, I guess now $17.8 million for the selling back of the bonds. So that shows up as an expenditure in the current year's or in the next year's budget. That's a one-time and that's not ongoing. So it gives the impression that the city is spending way more than it's taking in, but that's a unique one-time circumstance. On C10, I think one of the distinctions, well, let's see, maybe I'm not sure I fully understand the question. You asked if there were some errors there, and maybe after the meeting I can sit down with you and you can point them out to me a little better and see if there are some errors, because there may indeed be some things that need to be corrected. I think the city council budget that was commented on, and that's on page D2, and there's two things that are driving the recommended increase in the city council's budget. One, if you look on the personnel services side, you see the estimated for the current year at $75,000 going up to the recommended for next year of $109,000. For a reason we don't know, consistently throughout the budget and throughout the organization, many benefit costs were under budgeted this year, were not reflected. So if you actually look back into that column that says actual 2010-2011, you see the personnel costs there were close to $100,000. So the 108.9 that we're recommending for next year is a more accurate reflection of what the costs are of the benefits for the city council. So there's no raise in here for council compensation. There's no increase in benefits here. The other increase that shows up is on the operating costs, goes from an estimated $13,200 for this year to $99,000 for next year. There are two major components of that. One is the $30,000 that's in the budget for the live streaming on a regular basis of council meetings. There is also recommended in this budget $48,000 for next year for the city to retain a legislative advocate or lobbyist. And we have put that in the budget as a placeholder. We think as staff it's appropriate for the council to have that discussion about whether the city would be well served by paying for a legislative advocate that would represent the city in Sacramento, that looking forward for the long term, there may be some Bell-specific legislation that would be helpful. So $48,000 is put in there should the council choose to hire a legislative advocate. On the community services question, what are we spending the money on? I think if you go to page D21, D as in David, 21. You see this is the program page and the description for the youth sports and park activities. And this gives an explanation of the various programs, the soccer program, the baseball program, the Sapphires cheerleading program. We have over 800 participants in the soccer program and over 200 in the baseball program. So this gives both a description of what's being provided there. On page D23 is a description for what's being provided in the recommended $403,000 budget for the recreation and community services. I think I certainly understand and appreciate the interest in being able to spend more money, particularly on youth programs and recreation programs. We have put in money in the budget, as I said, for the summer youth hiring program that's proposed to you. This does have full funding for the technology center that the City Council recently approved. When you get to your study session next week, you may want to talk about using some of the funds that are in there differently. Would the city get more mileage out of the money that's going into the skateboard park by putting it towards youth basketball programs or something like that? Those are decisions for the council to make. And the investment in the future is, I think, very much noted. In terms of let's see, going back to the question on page B6 in the budget message. Again, in terms of a number of changes are recommended or included in this budget that presents a more accurate picture of the city's financial condition. So, and on the surface of it, if you looked at just numbers without understanding the full context, it would appear that the city has picked up a lot of revenue, more revenue next year as opposed to this year. Revenues are accounted for in one way and transfers from funds are accounted for in another way. And when you take away those changes and say what has been the real growth in revenue between the 2 years, that's where the $292,000 comes in. So it's trying to strip away things that reflect revenue that the city had but that was accounted for and recorded for in a different way. And we are, as I said, the revenue projections are pretty conservative. So the additional $292,000 is made up of a lot of little things in a lot of different places. The question on In terms of recommended general fund expenditures, our 11 million increase of 716,000. Net number that reflects increased cost associated with full staffing, increases in recreation and police service, facility improvements and technology investment, cost increases partially offset by a restructuring of the city budget as discussed elsewhere. 2 years ago, the city spent $1.7 million on legal fees. Mr. Alshire has been aggressively cutting fees and writing off 20% of services, and we're on target to spend about $1 million this year. That is still a very outsized number for a city of Bell's size and with the mix of services that the city has. What we've done in this budget in consultation with the city attorney is to kind of divide up and show and budget the money. So the city attorney's budget in the general fund for next year is $300,000 as opposed to $1 million. Now we've also made a transfer of funds that go to the risk management fund and are recommending setting up a special scandal litigation account, and there's $400,000 that is included in that part of the budget. So this does two things. It gives an more accurate portrayal of what the normalized cost should be for Bell in all services, including operating costs and legal costs, but takes into account that there remain significant legal issues and challenges that face the city, and also reflects the anticipation that some of those legal activities would hopefully result in gain of revenue coming back to the city. So that's what that refers to. And the net transfers. I need to sit down with you, Mr. Chavarria, and kind of go over the transfers. There's many transfers, funds that are transferred into the general fund for purposes, funds that are transferred out. So, when you step back and look at how much is the city really spending, you need to look at the general fund revenue or expenditures and transfers. But we could walk through that and demonstrate that. The retirement fund, since 1944, 45, I think the city has had a retirement pension tax levy. That levy does not cover all of the costs associated with the city's retirement pension benefits. So the amount that makes up the difference between what the city needs to pay to PERS and what the retirement pension tax generates, because that is capped, comes out primarily from the general fund, because that's where most employees are. And I think you were reflecting or making a comment on the fact of the city paying 100% of the employees' contribution to retirement. The council has made it quite clear that in negotiations with the POA and in working with the other miscellaneous employees of the city, that the employees need to start taking responsibility for and picking up their retirement cost, and Mr. Wilmore is modeling that behavior by picking up 100% of the employee contribution to that. So, and I guess that does bring another point that I think is important, is this, this budget recommended assumes no increases or no decreases in employee compensation. As we've talked about negotiations, clearly there are opportunities, and I think the council and management has been consistently setting the tone in the organization to expect, to start paying for some of the costs that you're not currently paying for. Now we have to meet and confer according with the law on those. And I think the last item was the police, Cudahy and sheriffs, and just a couple of comments on that. That yes, if that were to come to pass, and the city would be able to drive down its cost of, its own cost of police service by $1.3 million. that would be obviously significant gain to Bell. You know, at this stage, at least in the short term, it does not look like that you know, opportunity is going to materialize, although we've not received any formal communication from Cudahy. We understand just in watching their actions that they tabled this item, perhaps with some interest in looking at establishing their own police department. You know, I don't believe they could do that at a competitive cost, but you know, as we talked very early on about this, that you know, the decision like this does involve another city council and other political bodies. So that's not, I guess what's important to underscore for the public is that assuming police responsibility for Cudahy was not built into or assumed in this budget. So, you know, we weren't saying, gee, this budget includes $1.3 million. This budget is designed to sustain and maintain the current structure and operations of the Bell Police Department going forward for this current year. I believe those were all the questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any more questions from the Vice Mayor or Council? Council members? There's no action needed, right? Thank you very much for your great presentation and work on the budget.
If I could just comment, you know, and I appreciate the very kind words of so many of you this evening, and it's been a pleasure and an honor for me to be a guest in your community for the past 9 months. I have, from day one, felt very welcome by the residents of Bell, by the businesses in Bell, by the organization in Bell, and certainly by the City Council. And you know, this is truly an experience that I will, you know, cherish and remember the rest of my days. You know, one of the extraordinary parts of this opportunity was to be able to work with the interim directors and department heads that also came forward, and some of them enduring very long commutes to serve Bell. And I know I speak for all of them that we you know, have appreciated how welcome we have felt in Bell, and thank you for the opportunity. I have been in this business long enough, and I know Mr. Wilmore is very capable, and that, you know, a month from now it'll be Arnie who, and that's fine. That's the way it should be. So I really do appreciate the warm welcome and reception from the entire Bell community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Croce.
Mr. Mayor, I didn't get a chance to attend Arnie's going away reception last week, and since he's now demoted himself to Arnie who, I'd like to make a comment about what a privilege it has been to work with him the last 8 months. And I reflect upon the meeting tonight that we've had 2 discussions, which is the GO bond workout situation and then this outstanding budget presentation. And I also reflect within the last few meetings, a number of people in the audience were basically saying, nothing's changed here, we still have these same problems, we're not making any progress. And I think that Arnie's leaving is a moment to reflect upon the progress that has been made, as well as his own capabilities in making that happen. You know, obviously Arnie is experienced, professional, knowledgeable, very even-keeled, can talk to everybody, is not somebody that makes enemies. But I think the most outstanding quality that he's brought to this equation is his relentless, hard-driving desire to move the organization forward. I've worked over my 30 years with a number of interim city managers, and the normal MO when an interim comes on board is sort of not to do any damage. You know, they're just trying to hold things together till the permanent guy gets there, try not to make any enemies, deal with some of the broken pipes and streetlights not working, but the long-term stuff is kind of left for the next guy. Arnie, to his credit, came in here knowing that this is not an organization that was sort of half okay. There was a lot here. If he just got it through the next 8 months, it could go on from there. This thing had to be completely taken apart. There were major problems. There were demands on the part of the public that things happen. And he was incredibly well suited for that. He did not come in here with the attitude that he was going to sit back and watch things happen. His attitude was that he wanted this organization to be in the best condition possible for the next guy coming in. He wanted to build the foundation as high as possible so that the next guy would be able to start at a higher level and be able to take it to a higher level yet. And to do this, Arnie, every day he was here, was working hard to make sure that would happen. And in his budget presentation, he actually went through a series of things that he accomplished. But I think you sort of have to go back to, I remember 8 months ago, the first time I met Arnie, on this GO bond matter, we intended to come in here and recommend that you defer. There was going to be a property tax increase on the agenda, and because everybody was upset, the idea was going to be, well, maybe we just need to defer this and rethink things. And we met with a financial team, and we're going over the city's general finances, and over the course of that discussion, we suddenly realized that the property taxes in this community were going to go up 70%. Based upon the GO bond situation. And then and there, we rethought what we were doing. We came in with a totally different presentation, and which has led to today this extremely fine presentation that you received under Arnie's supervision. This whole program was carried out. Well, the confusion that existed at that time existed in all areas of what the city was doing. And in fact, this budget presentation, which many people, I think, was very nice that you acknowledged the job that Arnie has done on that budget presentation. But for those people that were here back in August when the two city managers removed was trying to explain the budget situation, and you compare in October, November, December, we actually had no idea what the city's budget situation was. So in the 8 months, the GO bond program's been completely worked out. Mr. Croce and the team created a whole budget situation where this community tonight could finally understand what the city's economic condition was. And because of that, we now can put together a plan, a program, as to how to fix the city for the future. Well, besides those huge accomplishments, there are just things like the trash program. I mean, many people would have just tried to lay back, maybe do some increases, temporary increases, let the next guy deal with that. Mr. Croce got in there, dealt with it in great detail. We had to go through a whole RFP process. I know it seemed to everybody, it took a while. It's remarkable that you could go from nothing to actually awarding a trash contract and in the process reduce the trash rates by 50%. That is a huge accomplishment. I think the assembling of the team is a huge accomplishment, and under Mr. Croce's leadership, there's a culture that has been created that as new department heads come on board, the people sitting over on that table know what they're doing, they've handled things well, and their successors are, again, going to be starting from a high base. And I can also say, just with respect to the labor negotiations, they're not complete. It's going to be a difficult process, but it started. You got your class and comp study. We've looked at the resolutions, the personnel policies. You're on the way with that. And personally, the area that I've been responsible for, I can tell you that back in October, I had I didn't have a clue what all the litigation was. I had no idea what the strategy was. I had no idea what had been spent, what had been done in any of these matters. Mr. Arnie has been a fabulous city manager to work with in terms of litigation. I understand he doesn't have a law degree. You couldn't prove it by me. He has really asked great questions. He's provided great leadership. He's certainly questioned where we're going with things to make sure it's beneficial to the city. I know at times the two of us have made our lives equally crazy, but I cannot imagine anybody that could have done a better job in these last 8 months, or anybody that it would have been a greater privilege to work with than working with Arnie on these problems. We both feel privileged to have worked on them, but I really appreciate the work he's done. I hope the community realizes the quality of the effort that's been made, and I do agree that Doug has a very high bar, but I'm sure that with the team and the group and the council and the training that we're all getting, that we'll succeed. But we will all have a great debt of gratitude to look back at how Arnie has gotten us headed the right direction. So thank you very much, Arnie.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Announcements?
Huh?
Announcements? Announcements?
Mayor and City Council communications. Start on either side. Councilmember, Vice Mayor.
Well, I want to mention that, when I become an elected official for the city of Bell, I didn't have no idea what I'm supposed to do. I just got elected, and for the right purpose was, I say that I'm going to help this community. And the thing is that it's been very hard. The first time that I received the agenda, it was 300, pages. And I didn't have no idea what I needed to do until you came aboard and you started explaining, what exactly I needed to do. And you will give me the briefing, what I needed to do. And if I have any questions or concerns, you were always there, to guide me. And you said that we're not going to remember who's Arnie, but I definitely will. And thank you for everything.
Thank you. Council members?
Announcements, general announcements.
Communication from the mayor and the city council.
Yeah. I apologize to the audience, but I can't hear from one of my ears. And it wasn't because I got punched in the face, okay? As for other matters, I did attend at no charge to the city because California Contract Cities gave us all waivers to attend their conference in Indian Wells on the 17th, 18th, and 19th, and 20th. It was, again, a very fruitful conference because you get to meet other council members and see how their cities are doing. During that same time, I attended a healthcare conference that for my professional development in my regular job. And that's frankly why I didn't get the notice on the special meeting of Monday the 21st. I also attended the 100th anniversary of Corona Elementary School today, and I wanted to applaud the teachers and the principal and the parents from Corona Elementary. It was a real good celebration, brief, but nonetheless a celebration for our local school. 100 years is no easy task. I want to compliment to the VFW and some few good soldiers of the foreign wars for having us at their celebration for Memorial Day. As I've gone to that celebration over the years, I noticed that this time around, there was more people there. So I do want to encourage the residents next year to come around. Finally, I do want to say that it has been my privilege and my honor to work with Arnie. The city here is 100 times better because of his leadership. At the beginning, I must admit, I had reservations, but because, once you get to know Ken Hampton, you thought, wow, can we do any better, even though Ken was here for a short while. Well, we did better. He exceeded my expectations, and I do want to personally thank him and his wife for taking this on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Yeah, I have a couple of announcements. Don't forget that on June 23rd, we're going to have the Relay for Life on Salt Lake Park. So as of now, we have a team of approximately 8 people, but we would like to have at least a team of 24, since each one of us would be responsible for walking for an hour. So this Relay for Life is really a 24-hour walk, which is supposed to represent really the struggle that people with cancer struggle every day and every hour of the night. Second, we still have to continue with our mission of saving the adult education center that's in the outskirts of Bell. The LAUSD, the Santos Unified School District LAUSD, will be finalizing their budget at the end of the month. On June 26th, that will be their final. So what I need you to do is to get online, go to the LAUSD website, get their numbers, and call each one of the board members, and urge them and encourage them and remind them that they have a legal obligation to the city. That project was fully funded. They are not paying 1 cent. All those monies, all those proceeds are coming from the state, federal, and bond proceeds, and all they have to do is keep the programs intact. And remind them that those programs are only 2%, and those programs and those classes is something that our community needs. Those are jobs that have to do with electrical, cooking, paralegal services. It's perfect for our community. Also, English classes and citizenship classes. So the elimination of those programs are not just education and quality of life and jobs, but really our opportunity to learn the language and our opportunities to get citizenship so that we can increase voter participation. And third, don't forget to go also on the website. We need participation for the local advisory committee. Remember, one of the things we were talking about is increasing and improving the infrastructure of the Bell community. The 710 freeway is in the process of being constructed, and the environmental impact report has been issued. It's made public. It is going to be printed in several languages, and we need to have that committee informed fully so that we can review it and get back. So put it in context. The 710 is under construction. You guys are seeing it. Whatever gets done, and if we don't respond, we're going to be stuck with whatever takes place there. So the applications are on the website. The applications are also on my website, and any questions that you may have, please feel free. And third, I want to end this meeting actually honoring 2 individuals. One is Ray Bradbury, who passed away today. I was really sad to hear that. He's a renowned writer, novelist, who wrote The Martian Chronicles and Fahrenheit 451. The reason why he's so memorable, actually, is I met him when I was a little girl back in the LA Public Library, because he was an advocate of libraries. And we've been talking about libraries, all around. And definitely, we have a good library, but we can have a better library. And the reason why he stood out is he actually was a learned man who didn't go to college. And his advocacy was really, if you have a question, just read a book. If you have any doubts, just ask someone. All you have to do is be interested and probe that. And that being said, I was really happy to have Arnie come to the city of Bell precisely for that reason, because I have a lot of questions. This is new to me too. It's definitely been a learning process, and Arnie has definitely been the perfect instructor. I mean, not only did he take the time to answer my questions, but really he followed by example, and I think that's the best thing. I don't even think really you realize how much knowledge you have, which actually makes you a much better, humble, and beautiful person. So thank you for coming to Bell. Oh, yeah, the mayor just reminded me. I also had the opportunity to attend a conference last week while some of the council members were at contract cities. I was in Manhattan Beach attending a conference for economic development, which I thought was really interesting because it really outlays a lot of opportunities that the city can capitalize on. And one of the things that I walked away thinking, I'm a real estate transactional attorney, did development, so I'm excited that Mr. Wilmore is here because he seems to like that part, and I'm looking forward to working with him. But the biggest lesson that I walked away with is really analyzing the budget and seeing what programs and what activities we can capitalize on, right? There are certain revenue sources that the city can really try to build because it's almost like the city is almost like a little company, right? We have our city manager, we have our staff, et cetera, but in the same way that we get revenues in terms of taxation and property taxes and sales taxes and even the utility users tax, there's also programs that we have and departments that we have that we can definitely invest in to bring greater returns. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Real quick, I had the opportunity to go to Contract City for a day. It was a few days, but I only went there for a day and had the pleasure of learning a couple of things and the role of a city manager and what they do and what their role is in running a city, and also about social media, how it impacts cities and what we can do to promote our social media, through social media programs of the city. We also, I want to let you guys know of some upcoming events. We have a water play that started on May 25th, and it's ongoing in Veterans Park between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. So bring all the kids to have fun with water. On June 4th, Bell Summer Fun Camp starts at between 8 to 4 p.m. And on June 11th, we have Los Angeles Dodgers versus Los Angeles Angels. We know who's going to win there. June 30th, movie night under the stars. That's at Veterans Park. And on July 4th, 4th of July celebration between 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. That said, I'll make it very short. Thank you very much, Arnie. You've been great. Really appreciate all the help you've given us. It was a good transition from myself to Ken Hampion and to yourself, and you've been good. Thank you very much for all the help you've given us. Appreciate it. And I think, Vice Mayor, you want to make a little comment on your contract cities? Yes? No? No. Okay. With that said, we'll adjourn to our next.
One second. Just want to let the public know there's a health fair this Sunday from 10 to 2 at the Azteca Boxing Gym. Bring your kids, bring your parents, come all. Thank you.
Thank you. We now adjourn to our next regular council meeting, Wednesday, June 20th, 2012. Will you be there?
Yes, and you have a study session next Wednesday, 6 p.m., June 13th. I will be back for that, and I'll be back on the 20th.
Good enough.
Thank you.
Thank you again.